Well, good evening, everybody. It is once again that time for everybody's favorite movie based list making podcast. That's right, it's 10 to 1. I am one of your host people, uh, Josh, joined as always by the other list making person. Uh, uh, you know what? So much low hanging fruit, as far as introductions go. But I'm just going to say it is the wonderfully um, adaptable Jen.
It's been a minute.
It
I
has
mean,
been a little bit. But as
yeah.
I've been telling everybody that would listen to me, the reason why Jen's been a little preoccupied is because her island is on fire,
Well, it
and
was on fire. It's
it
thankfully
was
not on fire anymore. But yeah, that
at
was a
least
thing.
not as much fire.
And it was pretty
Um,
bad.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Pe-
Not as much fire.
when I mentioned it, well, first of all, there's like, what do you mean Jen's island? Like Maui.
Yeah, it's my island.
It's like oh, that realization of, well, yeah, this is a disaster that I've heard of, and
I
yeah,
I mean, not to throw myself, the apocalypse party or anything, because of course I'm nowhere near that stage. It just kind of feels like it from day to day. But I also had these massive health issues. And someday I promise that I will do my podcaster's best to explain in no uncertain terms why you should be super careful about the kind of medication that you sign up to take because whew, I got some stories about Ozempic. Um,
hmm.
but in any event, I am feeling quite a bit better. I am able to eat again, which is, listen, if you haven't been able to eat for about a month, being able to eat is like it's like a treat. It's not just a, oh, let's have something for dinner. It's like, oh, I get to eat food. This is amazing. And my stomach has shrunk to about the size of a thimble. So, I think I'm going to have this giant big pasta dinner and I end up eating about 3 forkfuls. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that was great. But still doing better. So I have really missed you and I have missed podcasting, especially our list show. Uh, I, I can't even begin to describe how much I've missed this. So I hope you have been making good use of your time, Josh. I feel like it has been the entire summer vacation that we have been off. And I just hope you didn't get too wild in my absence.
Oh, I've absolutely been tearing it up out there in the wild,
Uh oh.
going to see musicians play music, and
That's a good use of time.
playing music myself.
That's also a good use of time.
I
Are you
plan
good?
on performing it someday. Am I good?
Are
No.
you are
Um,
you good? No, no, no. You're not.
but I'm
That's
I'm
not
putting
very
some
confident.
tunes together. It's just still my hands. They are not the hands of a young person. They're not
Mm.
quite as nimble as I see the people on YouTube and in real life, and they're making these chord shapes that give me arthritis just looking at them. And
But okay, but I counter with Metallica. I counter with Iron Maiden. They've been playing live shows forever and a day, and basically until those musicians die, they are still forming
right,
those
but
chords. So
their hands and their fingers have already been accustomed to bending in those directions, and here
okay,
I am, 41, um, trying to get used to it.
That's fair. That is very fair. And I have those like, really small stubby fingers that basically like I look at people with long fingers and go, "Oh my god, I'm so jealous." I basically have like the equivalent of T-Rex arms, but with fingers, you know, like that. I have T-Rex fingers. Yeah.
That's the way I feel.
Yeah. It's
I'm looking at my fingers now, and yeah, I'm all palm.
yeah, yeah. It's great, when you've got like something really small to do with your fingers. That's great. But the moment that you need to do anything that has any amount of long finger dexterity, nope, I'm just immediately out. I will just sit and appreciate because that's about all I can do.
Hmm. Hmm. But you know what
My
else we can do?
what can we do? Well, tell me, what can we do?
Listen to you say stuff. Sound like you were saying something.
Well, I was just going to say that my kid, who's my oldest kid, he is an extremely adept guitar player. He's an extremely adept musician. I mean, he plays the drums, he plays ukulele, he plays electric guitar, he plays acoustic guitar. I mean, he's a musician through and through, right? And one of the things that I notice is that you can tell that there is a skill set that he has learned around using his hands, using his fingers in all of those different positions on the chords, or to form chords. And it definitely is like, it's a little bit like being maybe, 40 years old and trying to learn a new language. It's not that you can't, you can, but it's a lot harder because your brain and your physical dexterity is just not as elastic. So I give you lots and lots of credit, Josh. Good job.
Well, hopefully, my simple little songs will be okay.
I have a feeling they will be wonderful. I cannot wait to hear them. I really mean that. But you know what else I can't wait to hear?
Metallica.
Well, yes, Metallica actually any day of the week and twice on Sundays. Also the Scorpions, also Dio, also yeah, okay, anyway. But you know what else I really can't wait to hear? I can't wait to hear your list for this week. Because I know that this list was oddly I thought it was gonna be so bad. I mean, I chose it, and I thought it was gonna be bad because I was like, cops, God, everybody's gonna hate cops. But when I started putting this thing together, holy smokes, I came up with a great list. And I mean, like, I really love every movie on this list. So I can't wait to talk about it.
Well, considering it's been about 16 years since we've last done this, I'm going to keep my explanations as succinct as possible, um, because I have no idea what I was thinking when I made it.
I feel like that actually might be more fun. And only because sometimes when you put not just a list, but sometimes when you put a bucket of things together, and then you have to go back and re-examine why did I put that bucket of things together. Yeah, your brain doesn't always piece it all together properly, so it's actually a little bit of chaotic hilarity. I can't wait. I'm actually kind of excited. I promise I won't pick on you, or just a little bit, just a little bit.
Well, then, who should start us out?
Well, okay, I'll start just so that we can get back into the swing of things. Because this movie, I guarantee everybody will, they'll have an opinion on whether you love it or you hate it. You'll have an opinion on it.
I've never seen it.
Okay. Yeah, I doubt I doubt it. I just doubt it. I doubt it. I
So
doubt it.
I'm preparing for the
Got it.
inevitable.
The inevitable. I haven't seen this. I don't think there's anything on my list. Maybe one that you either haven't seen or really don't know about. So that I think that bodes well for both of us.
Okay, let's do this. Number
All
10.
right. So in my number 10 position, I have this movie that basically kind of harkens back to every trope about a partner and his rookie that there is. And it is spliced together in the most hilarious way with a million other tropes about aliens. Yes, Men in Black. Not only do I love Men in Black for being now this like nostalgic movie. How is that even possible? Because it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, even though I know it was. But I love it because Men in Black has that quirky everything, including, the captain being the staunch, serious one, and everybody else being sort of like at his beck and call, the trusted and sort of stalwart partner that knows everything, and the rookie who thinks he knows everything and has to go through his paces, and then add together the idea of all of these people being aliens to the planet, in quotes. It's hilarious. I think Men in Black does a perfect job of making fun of all of the cop tropes that I can think of, while also giving us a unique and sort of crazily fun story that transports us, if you will, from sort of everything that we know about in day to day. This is the way that we see the city, to, of course, there's a million subway tunnels with all kinds of crazy loopholes and I'm not even phrasing this properly, but like, every conspiracy theory that you can think of would fit well into Men in Black, because basically they just run with it. I love that they look at the tabloids as their hot sheets. That absolutely makes me laugh so much. And this is in the time before QAnon. So, I mean, in a way, I feel like Men in Black kind of predicted the future. It's sort of hilarious. But that's my number 10, Men in Black, and I you have to have seen Men in Black. Am I wrong?
I have seen it. Yes.
That's a big. I'm glad, because I was gonna have to like come over there with a VHS, because that's the only way really to watch Men in Black.
You know what? Will Smith is a cop for a little while in that movie
He is.
before he gets recruited.
That's
So
right. That's why I chose it. But also they are basically like the. I mean, I hate to use this term, but they're like the cops of the alien population in the greater metro area. So, New York, New Jersey, blah blah blah. I mean, it
okay,
works. It totally works. And yes, he was a
taking
cop.
down the worst scum of the universe.
And honestly, yeah, he's one of those. I feel like he's one of those arrogant cops that like everybody hates, but then you watch him go through everything that he goes through, and it feels good to see him humbled. I gotta just totally say that, it feels good. I love what happens in this movie. It's just a really satisfying movie.
Excellent. So if you'll just go ahead and bounce with me over to my number 10. Um,
What
Men
you
in Black
got?
was a song too. Um, my number 10 is 2018, directed by Spike Lee. It's called Black Klansman.
Ooh, that's a good. I didn't even think of that. That's a good movie.
If you ever want to want a movie that just makes you go, God, that was just messed up, and it's
Mm-hmm.
true. This is it. Colorado Springs, late 1970s. Ron Stallworth, an African American police officer, and Flip Zimmerman, his Jewish colleague, run an undercover operation to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan. And they do, and it's all sorts of weird, and just the the levels of insanity that we look at through a 21st century lens about how uh, people of different ethnicities were just dumped on and persecuted for no reason really other than the way they were born and their heritage. It's aggravating, it's frustrating, and this is a movie that makes you feel and however way you feel about it, whether it's anger, frustration, sadness, definite melancholy, You will finish this movie having a ton of emotions that you may not know what to do with. So a definite follow up with like a palate cleanser is recommended. But Black Klansman is my number 10 for its just raw uh, take on the history of law enforcement in this particular era.
I'll say one thing about that movie. There is a casualness to the cruelty that is hiding under this like very high gloss veneer of normalcy, which is both incredibly terrifying and absolutely, yeah, this is exactly the way that, you can understand that this is how it exists. And it's portrayed so well. So that's a really great idea. I totally didn't even remember that movie, but that's a good one. I like it a lot. Good choice. Good choice. Okay. I'm gonna barrel ahead right now with my number 9. Okay, so my number 9 is a movie that I saw a long time ago, and it was really controversial, I think, and it still sort of is, because ugh, both because the way it portrays both partners, and because of the way it portrays, let's say that there's a lot of inequity that is happening here, but there's also a lot of entitlement, and there's also a lot of um, sort of arrogant. I don't know what the word is here. Something that is a little bit more than just being entitled. It's kind of like there is this supremacy to understanding the depths of corruption on this scale, and it feels very like, wow, is this really where things are at? And it almost feels like, this should never there should never be a truth in here, and yet, when you see it, you're like, yeah, this really could be. The movie is called Training Day. Now, if you don't know anything about Training Day, it's the premise of Training Day is kind of a lot like Men in Black, minus the aliens. um Training Day is about a seasoned partner taking his rookie partner out for basically the first day. It stars Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke. Has Eva Mendes in it. It's sort of an amazing cast. And this cop who is on his first day as a narcotics officer has no idea that his partner is rogue. Well, we don't. At least we're not led to believe that. Um, and there's something about Denzel Washington's performance in this, which is both, again, absolutely terrifying, and also there is this kind of like idea that this is just so commonplace, that all these things happening are so incredibly disposable, and they involve people's lives on such a grand scale that it's hard to watch. It's also really hard to look away. Um, there's gangsters, there's drug deals, there's a Mexican standoff, there's some Russian mafia happening, there's some sexual harassment, there's all kinds of things are happening, and in the end it feels to me like, the system really doesn't win. That things will probably continue on fairly much the same that they are, but there's a witness to some of this. So it doesn't end, I wouldn't say, like on a great note or anything, but it feels like you are a hardened person for have watched this movie. And you know, I would certainly not ever deign to know sort of what's going on the inside of any police force, including the LA police. But there is this sort of like note of hyperbolic caricature of these two characters that definitely gives you the feeling that they were based on somebody's sort of understanding of something that was happening, and or just ripped from the headlines. It does feel a little bit like they consolidated an awful lot of corruption into one movie, and yet at the same time it plays off really well. So great story, excellent, I think, from just the standpoint of contemplating the two cops together, what they mean to each other, how they treat each other, what is expected, and then what sort of like the ultimate peer pressure in this situation leads to is kind of great. I mean, I feel like it's actually really good. It's a great character study. So, Training Day, and that's my choice for number 9. I love Denzel Washington in this movie.
My man.
It's so good.
Well, I tell you what, King Kong ain't got nothing on my number 9.
Oh, did you know that Snoop Dogg was in that movie?
No.
I didn't know that either, but apparently Snoop Dogg was in that movie.
I saw it once. And, I enjoyed it. I can't say it's the thing that made me go, yes, this is the performance Denzel Washington deserves an Oscar for.
Yeah, right. But it was good.
But all those other performances, it's like he should have had one by now. So, you know what? Fine. Sure.
Yeah, give it to him. Yeah.
But my number 9, excuse me, I had a lot of options, especially with not just this number 9 slot, but just within this franchise. Oh, he tipped his hat a little bit. It's going to be a movie from a franchise. What could it be? Well, how many cop franchises could there be? You'd be surprised.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. But my choices were either, I would say, the first movie or the third movie, I think it was. But I went ahead and rolled the dice on the first one because it is the one that launched it. It is the one that introduced us to this group of characters.
Oh, I know what it is already.
That's right. I'm talking about. What am I talking about? Where was I?
Police Academy.
Right. 1980. Yeah, you got that right. 1984's Police Academy, the original with Steve Guttenberg and Michael Winslow.
And we can't forget Bobcat.
The sound effects. What's that?
That was 3. Bobcat was 3.
That's why I almost went with 3, just so I can bless that with the Bobcat. He made the movies a lot better.
I do really love that.
He is. I'm not going to talk about Police Academy. Police Academy 1. While there are a few elements in it that maybe don't age so well because of Mahoney's antics. For the most part, I'd say the characters are still absolutely 100% lovable. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Hightower or Mahoney or Michael Winslow's character. So I remembered a few. Anyway,
Everybody's
the point
good in
is,
this movie.
there are no bad performances in the original Police Academy, and in fact, I'd say that goes for quite a few movies before it just kind of gets all shticky. And even then, I'd say that when the franchise really starts to cheese out in a less than hilarious way, at some points it kind of circles back around to be over the top hilarious again. So the Police Academy series is one that has always been close to my heart because they've basically always been there for me. It's weird to say that these, you know, kind of, I mean, I I don't want to use the word raunchy, you know, because it's just classic 80s adult humor
Yeah,
more
it's
than
just comedy from another time.
um like go looking through a lens of where we are now. It could, like I said, be a bit sketch in parts, but keeping in mind that it was from a bygone time, and I'd even say with a couple of just minor cuts, the comedy holds up. Police
Yeah.
Academy is my number 9. I love it.
That's a good, it's a good choice, and it definitely stands up to the test of time. And yes, the humor uh, can be a little bit out of sync with maybe today, but I still feel like it does hold up. And you don't have to be necessarily um you have to look, you have to watch it as if this was from a different time. And yeah, I absolutely agree, though. It definitely does stand up. And that character, Steve Gutenberg's character, is sort of a he's a signature character. Like everybody, if you mimic that character, everybody knows who you're talking about. So there's a whole bunch of them in there. They're amazing. I absolutely love it. I think it's
Mahoney.
what makes the franchise work is the team. It's not any individual character, it's the team. It's everybody all together. That's super rare because most movies rely on a character or possibly two to really like get everything crammed into what the movie needs. And in this case, it's like so spread out and it still works really well. I
Hmm.
absolutely love it. I always liken Police Academy to they're the Muppets of the police. It's like
Oh
watching
yeah,
a Muppet skit. Yeah. So
when Citizens on Patrol came around, it had new life breathed into it.
yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And it was such a good concept too. I actually really liked it. Liked it a lot. Okay, my number 8 is I think this is actually kind of cool because I love the idea of Suicide Squad. And if you think about the sort of the literal understanding of a Suicide Squad, it's a little bit deeper and darker than what happens in the movie that I'm about to talk about, but it's the same kind of concept, right? And it really isn't actually something that probably would ever happen, not in our current day, because we don't look at the criminal justice system this way. I don't actually think they ever looked at the criminal justice system this way. It's just a good gimmick. So in the movie 48 Hours, we have Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy. And Nick Nolte is a cop who basically gets into some trouble. And his partner gets shot, and he sort of needs some help. And I mean, he needs some serious help because he really doesn't know what or how to get to the people that killed his partner. And so he goes and he gets Eddie Murphy's character out of jail and says, okay, you've got 48 hours to help me. There are some, negotiated perks to this whole idea. But of course, everybody's got their own idea of what it is that they're going to do. And nobody's sort of on the same page. Luther's on one page, uh the Jack character, Reggie character, everybody's all on a different page of what is going to happen. And everybody's looking out for themselves while trying to sort of negotiate the best that they can to make things happen. This particular movie is, I think, one of the first movies that did sort of the buddy cop uh genre well enough to make it memorable. And partly that's Nick Nolte and partly that's Eddie Murphy, both standout performances in this movie. But also there is something about the I don't know what a good word is for this. I seem to be tripping up my words. Sorry, it's been a while since we've done podcasts, but there's like this cavalier sense of what the criminal justice system can do and what the criminal justice system can't do, and each person kind of navigates that with their own self-interest at heart, and because of that it leads to all of these unintended consequences which happen throughout the movie. It's funny in all kinds of different ways. It's not meant to necessarily be a comedy, but it is still comedic. Like it is actually I won't say that it's silly, but there are some really crazy things that happen in this movie, and you kind of walk away from it feeling like it's a lot more lighthearted than perhaps it should actually be intended to be. One of the things that I really love about this movie is the soundtrack. It's done by none other than James Horner, and it was done, I think, at a time uh, when sort of the good cop bad cop stuff was a little bit more it was easing. It was sort of becoming more malleable, and it was more entertaining for whatever reason. This movie was released in 1982, and it's just really interesting. It stands out on a number of different levels, and one was, of course, the acting, of course, the music, but I think there's also all the underlying plot themes that really have to get tied together, almost like a Pink Panther sort of movie where there's like all these loose ends until the very end, and then things begin to kind of come together, and you really kind of get the feel for where everyone's alignment is, and it is a little bit surprising. I really liked it. I really liked this movie. I have seen it quite a few times in the past 10, 15 years, and always enjoy it. Yeah, I just think it's like one of those movies that if you like cop movies, this is one of those foundational movies that's definitely worth a watch. So 48 Hours, released in 1982, always a good watch.
Absolutely.
You've
I have
seen
seen.
48 Hours?
I have not.
Hmm.
It's been on my watch list forever.
I feel like 48 Hours is one of those movies that's like it's old enough that people won't go looking for it unless somebody really recommends it to them and says, "Hey, you'd probably really like this movie," because it's gonna feel a bit dated. But Eddie Murphy in this movie is I always said that I feel like Eddie Murphy was auditioning for Beverly Hills Cop when he did 48 Hours, and all he completely morphed everything, but this was like the tryout role. This was the let's stick everything we can together, and this is what they got. So I really enjoy it a lot. I especially enjoy it knowing that I like Beverly Hills Cop, because watching Eddie Murphy in this role is it's a bit different. It's a little bit spicier, so kind of good.
Well, that'll lead us to my number 8.
Indeed.
Okay, what can we say about my number 8? Because there are a lot of words I could use using simple connecting phrases like and or the. Some would consider it great. Some would
Hmm.
say the greatest. But
Oh.
here I am at number 8 because, well, what can I say? I have,
It's number 8 and it's the greatest. I don't know. Something's not adding up here. The math ain't mathin'.
that's right, because I am not going to play people's game. I do love this movie. It is considered, in my opinion, the second greatest Christmas film of all time.
Ooh.
I'm talking, of course, about 1988's Die Hard, starring Bruce Willis
Oh, he is a
as,
cop, isn't he? That's right.
yeah, he's NYPD, John
That's
McClane.
right.
And
That's right.
for those of you that are wondering why is Die Hard so low on your list? Well, what can I say? He's not in his jurisdiction.
Oh, this is super true.
Yeah, he's not really on duty, but
But
he's
what's
still a
his name
cop.
is? But what's his name is?
Reginald L. Johnson,
Reginald. Yes, yes.
come out to the coast. We'll get together, have a few laughs. It's
I
infinitely
mean,
quotable.
he's not just on duty. He's like on extra duty, and his wife is pregnant. So, I mean,
Is
yeah, we can be all excited about John McClane, but the real hero we all know is Reggie.
we look at Die Hard and we remember, you know, things about the action. You know, he walked through glass barefoot. Oh, that dude, that's so awesome. And what about when he jumped out of the window and like did the thing? It's like, yeah, all that stuff, yeah. But what people often overlook is the familial, the family plot. That's what it's all about. He's not doing it because, oh, I'm a cop. I guess I got to save the day. He's like, I need to keep my family together,
Hmm.
and I can't keep them together if she's dead. So I better save my wife, Holly.
Hmm.
And he does. And I will also add that this was the first movie where I'm like, so this Alan Rickman guy is kind of a, you know, awesome dude, huh? Look at those acting skills. How about that? When they drop him from the spoilers for Die Hard, when they drop him from the top of the Nakatomi Plaza, he genuinely looked surprised. Spoiler, he was. Um, so that's a great story when they're like, okay, we're gonna release you on three. One, two, and release. Just, I love that. See, that's directing. That's how you know you have a good director. Anyway, there are like I said, many reasons why Die Hard will always be on any list that has the word cop in it, because John McClane is uh, one of the best at doing what he does, and the reluctant hero, even though technically his job is to do these things, but he does so. It's not like he's really excited to go after these guys, robbing the building. He doesn't get any pleasure out of it. He's just kind of taking the moment and enjoying it as much as he can, with things like, now I have a machine gun, ho ho ho, and yeah, and anytime Hans Gruber is on scene, it's just absolutely chewing up the scenery. Alan Rickman is exquisite, exquisite in every way, and continued to be that for many years to come until his unfortunate passing. Um, Die Hard is my number 8, and like I said, he's out of his jurisdiction, but and not on duty. That's why I had to put it so low.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say that uh, that that the character of Al Powell is one of my favorite character tropes in sort of fictional writing. They're sort of like the hero, but they're the unsung hero. They are the hero that allows the hero to be the hero, and they generally get like very little praise, and a lot of times it's just sort of like more comic relief than anything else. But honestly, this is really excellent storytelling. So I just got to give a shout out to you know Sergeant Al Powell, because I love that character so much. It's a great character, and
And
also all the
it's
other characters too.
kind of what made us think of him as a cop for many years, and Family Matters rolled up, and he's a cop there, and
Yeah,
it's like, we've
absolutely.
seen him be an awesome cop. This is believable.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, he's already convinced us. We're done. We're there. Well,
All right. Well, you're right. It would be number 7.
my number 7 is I can almost hear Kinte. I know that you're not listening, but if you do happen to listen to this podcast later, I'm so sorry that I had to give this a 7. I know you love this movie, and you're absolutely right to love it. It definitely deserves more love than I could give it on this list. I just had more exciting cop stuff to put on my list, so that's why it's at my number 7. My number 7 is this movie that was done in the film noir genre, which is so gorgeous. I absolutely love it, and it works so well for cop dramas. I think it's one of the reasons that we, a lot of times associate actual film noir with cop dramas. I mean, not this movie, but we associate it. And the fact that they chose to use noir to do this is amazing. Everybody's performance in this movie, from and I, Kevin Spacey has his problems, but from Kevin Spacey to Russell Crowe, Guy Pearce, James Cromwell, Kim Basinger, Danny DeVito, David Statham. Let's see, who else do we have? Amber Smith, um, Matt McCoy, who is also amazing. Just the list goes on and on. It's an amazing cast. And the cast of this movie is really what makes this movie work. But the story of LA Confidential is just perfection. It is beautifully timed. It is absolutely stunning to look at. And there is a sense of, I don't know, utter believability happening in everything that exists on this movie plane. Um, I won't get into the plot. I know a lot of people actually haven't even seen LA Confidential. I highly recommend it. It takes place in 1953, and it sort of does the thing with a cop drama that gives you the idea that there's something really nefarious happening, and that seems like the most important thing, but then you find out that there's this other thing happening, and that actually is the biggest thing. um there is there's also something to be said about us nostalgically looking back, in 19 uh 1997, almost 1980, back to the 1950s, and sort of recreating the cop genre uh, story that almost feels like this came from a graphic novel, or a dime store book. It gives you that feeling of, like, us having a love affair with that retrospective look back at the cop drama. I really like this movie for a lot of reasons. One, it, sort of doesn't shy away from, quote unquote, going there, which I feel like is really important to the central plot. And it also treats the characters as if they are just as bad or as good as they actually are. So you get a real, pardon the pun, black and white understanding of who these characters are. And everything is made 1,000 times more pronounced by the incredible lighting work. This movie has just some of the best lighting that I can think of in terms of how it narratively performs within the movie itself. It's just excellent. I don't, I always say that I don't like Russell Crowe, and then I always find reasons to love Russell Crowe. In this particular movie, Russell Crowe shines. I mean, his performance is absolutely amazing. And as much as I don't really, appreciate who Kevin Spacey is right now, in this movie, Kevin Spacey as Sergeant Jack, Hollywood Jack they call him, was just stupendous. It is such a good portrayal. You really feel everything that this character is sort of throwing out there, and it works really well. I'll say one other thing. Kim Basinger is really just above and beyond in this movie. And like, it's got to be hard to play this kind of character without sort of feeling like you're just a caricature. But she really pulls it off, and I am just so astounded by it every time I see it. So, LA Confidential. It's based on a book actually by James Elroy, which is also super good. And I don't know what else to say about this other than just to say if you haven't seen it, it is really worth watching. Absolutely, totally worth watching. So, number 7, LA Confidential.
I have not seen it.
Oh, yeah. No, this is definitely one to stick on your list. Before you watch 48 Hours, I would watch LA Confidential.
I don't think it's streaming anywhere. That's one of the reasons why I haven't been able to cross it off my list.
The movie itself has such a confident sense of itself. I mean, sorry about that, but I mean the title withstanding, it is there is something about the way that the narrative unfolds that is just so incredibly powerful because it just absolutely knows where it's going without having to meander, without having to take a lot of breaks or have unnecessary exposition, or even exposition that you might think is necessary but feels superfluous. I mean, sometimes cop dramas do that, and in this case everything is just so well timed. So I highly recommend this movie, and yeah, I don't know if it's streaming everywhere, but I would say that if you can, rent this movie for 2.99 someplace, rent it because it's definitely worth it.
Fine. I will have it watched by the time we do the next show,
Ooh, that's exciting. I can't wait to talk to you about it.
which at the rate we're going might be by the end of the year.
Hopefully that's not the case. We're gonna make a more concerted effort to get stuff going here.
Yes, we are. I made a terrible joke.
It's okay. I forgive you. We're all good. Continue
Well,
on.
hopefully
What
you'll
is
be able to
your
forgive me for my number 7.
what is your number 7?
My number 7 is a movie that I find absolutely hilarious. It
Ooh.
is a movie that is practically perfect in its execution.
Is
Uh,
it Mary Poppins?
it is.
Oh no, wait,
It
sorry.
is
That was
not.
just practically perfect in every way. Yeah, sorry.
But then I did get the practically perfect from there. Thank you for getting that reference. No, you're going to hear this, and you're either going to be on board with it or you're going to say, "What?"
Oh, okay.
It's from 2012, and it stars Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum. That movie is 21 Jump Street.
Oh. I was a big fan of the series.
Here's the thing. I didn't know what to expect when I watched this movie, and it blew my mind in so many ways. It so many times it could have just been super cheesy and super, you know, riddled with nostalgia, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it seems like they took those things and kind of turned them on their head, especially making the dorky guy the popular one, and the jock was kind of a not popular, and kind of it it reflected I think some of the more modern ideals as compared to the original the series, and just made you go, wait, what what's going on here? And yes, it still has a lot of action and a lot of uh, cheesy dialogue that they just kind of lean into and it fully embrace. So it's coming from less of a reliant place and more of a, we're going to make this the humor. Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum pull it off in a way that is true to them, not only as characters, but also so tightly scripted as it almost holds true to them as people as well. So it may make it easier to, I mean, if you're just being yourself, that's just simple acting. Not much of a stretch. But I argue that that can also work in your favor in many ways. Yes, it's awesome to see the Philip Seymour Hoffmans and the Marlon Brandos and guys that will really stretch to make you believe in a character. But at the same time, sometimes even when that stretch isn't there, as long as the character is still the character, even if that character is a good percentage of the actor, also it carries the movie. And I bring all this up because I haven't mentioned who directed it yet. Do you know who directed 21 Jump Street?
I don't actually. I don't know a lot about the film.
It was directed by Lord and Miller.
Oh,
These are the guys that were given the Lego movie to direct and then just
yeah,
knocked it out of the park.
yeah. Same thing with Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Well, they didn't direct it. The Spider-Verse movies.
No, but isn't he on tap for Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse? Yeah, he is.
For Beyond the Spider-Verse?
Yeah. Well, Miller is. Christopher Miller is.
Okay. I didn't even. You got me all thrown off now. Thanks a lot, Jen.
Sorry.
So, getting into the stuff that they've produced,
Cloudy with a
we're
Chance of
talking,
Meatballs, I remember.
and the Mitchells versus the Machines.
Yes, Mitchell's versus the Machines, which is also a knock out of the park, kind of good.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't seen it and you want to just have like a great day at the theater, go see Strays.
Yeah,
You
they
cannot go
produced
wrong.
that.
You cannot go wrong.
Produced the Spider-Verse movies, and Cocaine Bear.
I didn't know they did Cocaine Bear. That's awesome.
So Lord and Miller are really good at what they do when it comes to writing, when it comes to directing, when it comes to producing. So it should be no surprise that when it comes time to do a 21 Jump Street movie, they absolutely crush it. And that is why 21 Jump Street is my number 7.
Man, I do feel like that's a good choice, both for the cop dynamic and for just sort of like the super unconventional. Which I mean, I can't say it's unconventional, like, oh, it hasn't been done before. The cops go to the high school, blah blah blah. But there is something unconventional about the way that they treat this, and you're right. I think it's actually the two of them. It's Lord Miller that actually do such a good job of the unique take on it. And honestly, Channing Tatum, I could watch him eat oatmeal and I'd be happy. So, yeah, good,
I
very
want
good
to
choice.
say, as an honorable mention, real quick, 22 Jump Street with with a very famous line. I don't know, just do what you did last time. And I really enjoyed that very, very much.
That's hilarious. Well, my oh wait, I almost skipped to number 5 and I missed number 6, and that would be
number
a
6.
super shame because number 6 is actually let's just say that I think it was Ebert declared that this movie was in his top 10 movies for the 1990s. He loved this movie a lot. And so did everybody else. And in fact, judging by the amount of awards that this movie won, I think most of the planet loves this movie. It is so unconventional. Just eh, it's unconventional, but it's also sort of like it's the kind of movie that you know that because the Coens made it, it's gonna be unique. I think that's the best way to describe it. Can you guess what it is?
It is, of course, Turner and Hooch.
Oh no, it's not Turner and Hooch. Let's just say Minnesota Nice.
It is,
Any
of
ideas?
course, the television series Coach.
No, it's not that either. I'll just stop the everybody's, won't leave you in suspense anymore. It's Fargo. Have you seen Fargo? Have you not seen Fargo?
I have seen Fargo. Yes.
Okay. Whew. Boy, for a second there, I was really going to be upset. Okay. 1996, this movie Fargo came out. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is definitely black comedy. I mean, there's no doubt about it, right? You can't it drips with a kind of sarcasm and a rich sardonic nature that is really difficult to look away from. And you don't want to laugh at some of the stuff that's happening, but it's really hard not to. Um, there's this idea that is the sort of like Minnesota nice, which contrasts with this crazy juxtaposition with the triple homicide that happens. And everybody in this movie, from William Macy to Steve Buscemi, and and I'm just gonna say that like there's nobody in this movie that doesn't feel like they don't fit there. And it's so weird to say that because the movie is sort of like way out of the way of what I think we would normally look at as, oh yeah, this is gonna be a really successful cop movie because of the way that they deal with the subject. And there there's a beautiful kind of understanding of this particular movie that uh that sort of transcends the normal idea of what good writing is. In fact, I think that the WGA had put this on like one of their, top 50 movies, top 50 scripts ever written. And part of it is the way that the plot is so tight, and the way that there are these very sort of centric ideas that are really obfuscated by the action on the screen, and it makes it really difficult to understand what might be happening until you sort of get to why everything is happening as oddly as it is. Now, I've seen a lot of sort of Fargo knockoffs. I just watched one with a werewolf that I thought was great, and the formula just holds up so well. Fargo as an idea, and then executed by the Cohen brothers, is just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The cop perspective in this is, it almost feels like everybody is sort of like bumbling along. Again, I go back to the whole, Peter Sellers in the Pink Panther, and you get this idea that like maybe nobody really knows what they're doing, or that it's just so weird what's happening that like they'll never get to what actually happened. But then you start to really like see the brilliance underneath all of it, and it's so cool. I just love this movie a lot. um so I'm going to, I wish I could have actually put this movie even higher too, because this movie I can watch again and again and again. I never get bored of it. I always see something a little bit different, and I love the over the top performances by everybody. So I'm just going to leave it there. If you haven't seen this movie, I don't know what you're waiting for. I mean, everybody and their brother and sister and cousin and uncle and everybody has seen this movie, or has weighed in on it. It like scores crazy. It's like 94% at Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, it's just everybody loves it. So absolutely, number six, Fargo, excellent, excellent movie.
It is an excellent movie. You have gotten this one correct.
And I don't even try to mimic their accent, but it's so you know it the moment that you hear it, and that's why I say Minnesota nice, because it's just got that Minnesota nice twang to it, which I love.
Also, you're probably wondering what my number six is on there, eh?
Yeah, but could move a little bit further south, not quite Canada, a little bit further south.
Yeah,
Minnesota's
yeah,
not quite Canada. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway, give us your number six. What's your number six?
Don't tell me what to do.
I'm gonna tell you what to do. I'm the good cop in this one. You can be the bad cop.
I'm a loose cannon, and I'm not going to give you my gun and my badge.
Nobody does good cop bad cop like Liam Neeson. Speaking of the Lego movie, I mean, like that's the best good cop bad cop that there ever was.
Uh, so number six is also going to be a funny one. Let's see, 2007. That's right. 2007, directed by this guy. Maybe you've heard of him. His name's Edgar Wright.
Ooh, I think I've
The
heard of
movie
him.
is called Hot Fuzz.
Oh no, not that movie.
Yes, that movie starring Simon Pegg and Nick Ross, the two buddies. And I'm not really gonna, stick on this one very long. It's been a minute since I've seen it. I did watch it in preparation for the show, and then I
3 months went
yeah
by, and yeah, yeah, I get it.
yeah
I get it. I
things
get it.
happen. But I thought, you know what? Let's take a look at police action, across the pond, as it were. And Hot Fuzz, I believe, if memory serves, is a shining example of exemplary police work over there on the old Isle of England, um, in a little British village where two officers have to do whatever they can to, fight corruption and bring, uh, I guess, a good name back to the something. Hot Fuzz is hilarious. Okay,
It is
that's
pretty
that's
funny.
that's what it's all going to boil down to. Edgar Wright. Who knows what his Ant Man would have looked like, since we didn't get it. But when it comes to just falling in love with this man's work, I know a lot of people point to Shaun of the Dead, and yeah, it was good and had heart. But uh, when you ask me, hey, let's watch an Edgar Wright movie, what should it be? I'm going to say it should probably be Hot Fuzz,
Hmm.
because it's got a lot of action. It's got a lot of quips, and it's got a lot of awesome awesome interactions between Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, and that's really what you sign up for these movies for, to see these guys just kind of feed off each other with the comedy. No matter what the characters they are playing, it's always going to be a good, fun, hilarious time, and that is why Hot Fuzz is my number six.
Hot Fuzz is another one of those buddy cop movies too, where it definitely plays off that trope pretty well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think
Leans
my
into it.
favorite my favorite movie by Edgar Wright though is Scott Pilgrim. That's my favorite. I love that. And unfortunately, that's not a cop movie, so we'll just skip right over that and we'll move on to my number five. My number five is actually the number is the title. So although it's not five, it is seven. Okay, so I just said it out loud. Now let's deconstruct seven. Seven is, in some ways, seven is an extremely almost contrite kind of storytelling movie. Uh, you kind of get where things are going fairly quickly. Um, and although each reveal is more insane than the next, uh, it doesn't really leave a lot to the imagination. But the escalation in Seven is, to me, one of the, I think, really kind of best storytelling tricks that get used. I really liked it. And I think that David Fincher, who directed this movie, did a great job of capturing exactly the right tone here. It's got a little bit of the, you know, okay, does this have to be so tropey with, Morgan Freeman being the paladin of the pair? Does Brad Pitt have to be so hot-headed and whatever? But there's the points behind all of these are so incredibly powerful when you kind of get to the end reveal, and everybody's favorite meme, what's in the box. um by the time that you get there, you've been so amped up by this pair that you, I think, feel even more emotionally invested than maybe you would be by just sort of the storytelling all by itself. There is definitely a character connection here, which makes a huge difference. um I I think one of the things that I really like about Seven a lot is that there's sort of this idea that it it's not just like all's well that ends well. It's there is this idea that the bottom of y- the basest part of your existence is never the bottom that you actually think it is. And in a weird way, there's like such a bleakness to that, which feels compelling to explore. It's not pretty, but you know our killer is right in more ways than we could probably or comfortably want to admit, right? um Kevin Spacey's in this movie, so once again I'm choosing a Kevin Spacey movie. But Kevin Spacey in this movie, really, there's a performance level in this which is, man, this was tricky because he could have easily been, you know, the super over the top villain type, and he doesn't come across that way. And the same thing with Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt's David could have been absolutely a caricature of, you know, the hotshot kind of guy, and instead, yeah, he is, but you feel, I think, this temperament from him, mostly I think through the Gwyneth Paltrow character, who I hate Gwyneth Paltrow, but I love Tracy Mills as a character because she's the grounding force in who David is, and it's really interesting. I mean, like, it's just such a cool dynamic. uh, um it has strains of um the whole Hannibal series, or the whole Hannibal line of movies. It has, strains of being like so utterly aware of your depravity that it's almost a show all by itself. And that's kind of one of the reasons that I love Seven. So yeah, Seven gets my number five choice. This particular movie just really, it stayed with me for a really long time. When I first saw it, and every subsequent watch that I've had has been pretty good. I mean, it's definitely, uh, it still holds its weight. So I'm going to go with 1995 Seven in my number five position.
It had been a good long time since I have seen the movie Seven, and I hope Jen doesn't realize that I barely remember it. But
No.
my number 5 is sure to blow her socks off
Oh,
as I
okay.
do this voiceover narration before I get to my next pick.
You're doing a good job as the voiceover gumshoe in your own, narrated series. So good job. Keep going.
My next pick does include something like that. It also includes lines like, "I know, Ed, life isn't always fair. Just think, the next time I shoot someone, I'll be arrested."
Hmm.
Any
I don't
thoughts?
recognize that. No, I don't recognize that one.
Okay, how about this? I'm going to be two people, and hopefully the voices will sound completely different. Um, okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. I'm also doing a whole lot of production stuff in the background.
Huh? Don't hurt
Let's-
yourself. Sorry, don't hurt yourself.
Ouch. Too late. Anyway, I don't want any more trouble like you had last year on the South Side. Understand? That's my policy. Yes, well, when I see 5 weirdos dressed in togas stabbing a guy in the middle of the park in full view of 100 people, I shoot the bastards. That's my policy. That was a Shakespeare in the Park production of Julius Caesar, you moron. You killed 5 actors. Good ones.
Oh my god, I really don't know what this is.
Really?
I don't.
Okay, okay. Then I'm just going to have to say it then. My number 5, from the files of Police Squad, it's The Naked Gun.
Oh, I should have guessed that. Duh. Okay, I
Back
feel
when
silly.
parodies were well, never really the king of cinema, but they were really good. And then we just they just went way into overdrive on the production of parody movies. But The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad is a wonderful, wonderful movie starring Leslie Nielsen as Frank Drebin. As he says in the opening, "My name is Sergeant Frank Drebin, Detective Lieutenant Police Squad. And don't ever let me catch you guys in America." And that's how you get introduced in the in the movie. Um, it is probably the only thing that I can remember seeing with Priscilla Presley in it, which is now kind of timely since there's that Sophia Coppola movie, Priscilla, coming out
That's right.
soon. Maybe we'll get a little bit of this. I don't know. Directed by David Zucker, starring Leslie Nielsen, Priscilla Presley, George Kennedy, doing a great job. If you've ever seen those, the GIF of everyone kind of like, yeah, that's the face palm
Right.
that Frank screws up once again. It is it's a parody of detective movies, police procedurals, and a hilarious story of Frank trying to prevent the assassination of the Queen as she makes her visit. Has a wonderful cameo from this recording artist. Maybe you've heard of him, Weird Al Yankovic.
I think I've heard of him.
Mind you, it is literally just 2-second cameo, but it's still awesome seeing Al on the big screen always. And this was, like I said, this is a movie that made parodies. There were parodies before, of course, and really good ones. Mel Brooks immediately springs to mind. David Zucker, that's kind of been his bag, but first for me, I'll say then I'll qualify this. For me, The Naked Gun was my first kind of entry into parody movies where I didn't care for cop movies growing up because I wanted to laugh and seeing um, you know, Leslie Nielsen do the physical humor as a very young me watched on it struck that funny bone. And yeah, a lot of the stuff just went flying over my head. But you know what that means? That means as I got older and as I watched it over and over the years, there was always something new to the comedy that made me appreciate it more. And this was, I'd say, between this, all the Naked Gun movies there are absolutely hilarious. Uh, Leslie Nielsen was sitting on top of the parody movie mountain for a good few years. Unfortunately, some of the follow-ups with other title Dracula Dead and Loving It springs immediately to mind. Not as great, but the Naked Gun series fires on all cylinders, and you cannot go wrong picking one. Um, some of you might have noticed that I have not, uh, not even going to continue that line of thought. But the point is, um, the Naked Gun series, especially the Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad, are mandatory watching for anybody that loves comedy, for anybody that loves police movies, and for anybody that just loves film. This is something that should be on everybody's watch list if you haven't seen it, and it should be one of those movies that you watch immediately following this show, of course. So, Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad is my number 5.
Good choice. I unfortunately am not I mean, like, I'll watch them, but they're not my most favorites. But I appreciate the humor. So good choice. Good choice. I'm definitely more of an airplane person. So yeah, there's that.
You can like two things, Jen.
I know. I just have such a hard time picking between the two of them. What can I say? I've been watching The Good Place, and I'm pretty sure that I'm like in the cheaty camp. I have to like
What the
overanalyze
fork,
everything.
Jen?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, we'll get to that on another day.
Just
My
finished
number
watching
four.
that series, by the way.
My, I freaking love that. I just love that. I'm actually on my third watch through. That's how much I love
Yeah,
it.
it was my
So,
second.
uh, just there's nothing as satisfying as really good biting comedy coupled with philosophy. I don't even know how to describe that. I feel like I'm almost every single one of those characters at one point or another at various times during my day. So
Hmm.
it just fits perfectly. It hits me perfect. I just love it.
How many
Okay.
times a day do you find yourself saying, Blake Bortles?
Or just blaming everything on Kant, which is perfectly acceptable no matter what philosophy you ascribe to. Just blame it on Kant and you're good. You're fine. Don't even think about it. Just blame Kant. You're all good.
Excellent.
Um, okay. All right. My number four. I'm not going to talk a lot about this because I mean, it's an older movie. I think most people have seen this movie or they know of it. But I really felt like it needed a place on this list because it absolutely is one of the movies that I think, from a police procedural standpoint, opened the door to so much else that I really wish we could recapture. Because man, I feel like we've moved so far away from this, and it hurts a little bit. In 1967, a movie called In the Heat of the Night came out, and it starred Carol O'Connor, who, if you didn't know anything about Carol O'Connor before, and you just sort of like know the name sort of in passing, Carol O'Connor plays this iconic role as Archie Bunker in a series called All in the Family. And he's a bigot, but he's like a bigot that like is so misguided, and his family is always trying to rescue him from erroneous thinking. And he reminds me of like and it's it's this is all done in sarcasm, so it's all the comedy of this is that kind of like it's blighted. um but it reminds me of like where the original Trump supporters came from. It's like that kind of thinking is just like so sort of pervasive. And anyway, I really loved his performance in the movie. In the Heat of the Night, Virgil Tibbs, and this is in this place called Sparta, Mississippi, which is extremely racially divided, is joined by another a police a person who, let's just say, uh, they haven't really encountered before, because he's a black man and they really don't have a lot of professional, especially professional detectives that I mean, I feel like the whole point of In the Heat of the Night is to express how frustrating it is to see the racial divide and be able to identify it and not be able to do anything about it. But at the same time, also realize that if you just give people a chance, they will rise to the occasion. Um, there's an incredible amount of compelling drama in the Heat of the Night, which revolves around the solving of the homicide detectives sort of he's a criminal profiler, so they're like they're looking at several things, and there's all of these obviously very racially charged things that are going on, but the heart of what makes this movie so good is, yes, that's one part of it, but the police procedural part is actually really, really excellent. Like there is they didn't just make a movie about the racism of Sparta, Mississippi. They made a movie about the racism and they got everything right about it. So they didn't skip on what I think would be sort of the overall dissatisfaction of everybody in the system and how it's running and operating and what they all really think and how they really think it. Again, performances absolutely just off the charts. Howard Rollins is I think one of the best actors that they could have gotten for this role. It's just absolutely uh it- well, oh no, wait, I'm sorry, not Howard Rollins. He was the guy that was in the TV series. Um uh who am I thinking? Uh who am I thinking? I am drawing a blank. Um, who is who's Mr. Tibbs? Mr. Tibbs is
Sidney Portier.
Sidney Poitier. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You just had to give me the S. Uh, and I'm sorry, and I totally messed up because I said it was Carol O'Connor, and that's not that he was in the series. The person that's in this particular that stars in that role in the movie is Rod Steiger. Again, Rod Steiger is also has that sort of iconic, he's the straight man sort of feel. But it's Sidney Poitier that does the heavy lifting in this movie, and everybody knows the line, "They call me Mr. Tibbs." In fact, there is a sequel to this movie that is called "They Call Me Mr. Tibbs," which is actually quite good and very underrated. All right, so I've spouted on enough about this movie. In the Heat of the Night, my number 4.
I have not seen it.
Serious.
Serious.
Wow. This particular movie has music by Quincy Jones, which also makes it very much stand apart. Like it's truly excellent. Quincy Jones did an amazing score for this movie. And there, yeah, there's something about everybody's performance in this which is just unbelievably astounding. This movie had a budget of $2 million. Now, of course, this is back in 1967, so take that for whatever. But the box office take on this was $24 million. So I mean, like, this movie did a hell of a box office haul for the time. I feel like that's a pretty good it says a lot about how people liked this movie, what they liked.
I plan on watching it after your uh, talking about it. And of course, that happens quite a bit. When we do the show, it's one of the reasons I love doing it so much because I always wind up, with a whole slew of movies that get added to my watch list. And
So, so first you got to watch LA Confidential, but then you can watch In the Heat of the Night. First, watch LA Confidential.
let's see. Let me make sure this is all on my watch list. So first we have LA Confidential. I'm pulling that up now. Make sure that's on my watch list. By the way, I say this because it's a great segue. If you're interested in doing what I'm doing as far as keeping track of the movies that you want to watch, or just looking up the lists that we're doing, and I'm updating them live during the show, and I just put in the meantime. Um, and when you're typing and you start typing the words you're saying, um, go to Letterboxd.
I love that. That's great.
On Letterboxd, and we have an account there, 1021 Pod, and you'll be able to get all of our lists in completed form. Give us a follow, and then you'll be able to keep track of what we watch, the order that we rank them for our categories, and try to make sense of it.
I just gotta say something about In the Heat of the Night. I've just remembered this, and it's one of the things that always bothered me so much, right? So Sidney Poitier did not win an Academy Award for a long time, and it bothered me so much. In the Heat of the Night, Best Actor went to Rod Steiger, who was okay. You know, he was one of the lead characters, but he was one of the lead characters, and it always bothered me that Sidney Poitier was not nominated until you realize that that was 1967. And 1967 was people were not nominating black actors for Academy Awards, much less expecting them to win. And this movie won one, two, three, four, five, I think five Academy Awards. And five Academy Awards to win, and the movie is based on racial inequality, and the very heart of racial inequality is also one of the reasons, or one of the things that makes it stand out so much, because nobody was nominated that should have won, um in light of what it was about. You know what I mean? Like, it just man, I hate that so much.
Yeah, like when Denzel wins for Training Day.
Exactly. Yes, thank you. That is actually a really good callback. I completely agree. It just bugs me. And Denzel Washington has to win for Training Day for playing the stereotypical, black cop who is corrupt, who is and I'm not saying that the performance wasn't Academy Award winning. It was. It was amazing. But why do we that it just the whole thing just bugs me so much. Why do we have to honor people for what we think is their stereotypical contribution to art, when what they do as great artists should be held up on pedestals for all kinds of things, not just for what we like to stick them in boxes for, you know?
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
know exactly what you're talking about.
Oof, that one really gets me. All right. Well, you're on to your number 4, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I guess I had it, but then I lost it. Yeah, you meathead. Anyway,
Yeah. See, I'm so sorry that I conflated those two. I really loved the series In the Heat of the Night too, and I often find myself doing that, and I'm so sorry. I was
it,
conflating In the Heat of the Night, the
it
series, with the
happens.
movie.
At least you're not conflating it with the 1990 film of the same name,
No, no, no. Would not do
because
that.
that is a very different movie, apparently.
Yes, a little bit. Just a little bit.
So my number 4, as we journey from we've been around the country a little bit,
Yeah.
and we've crossed the pond, as it were, and returned back, and now we're going to circle around the the God, I don't remember what it's called. We're crossing the Pacific. Basically, what it boils down to.
So
We're
we're
gonna.
heading over the international date line or just across
Oh
the
yeah,
Pacific? Okay.
we're crossing the ocean. We're gonna wave to Jen as we fly over.
Ooh.
Probably have to actually make a connecting flight in Hawaii, but that's neither here nor there because we're on our way to this little place called Jakarta.
Hmm.
I know, it's like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
Why are we talking about Jakarta? Well, you see, the thing is, that's where this movie is set. Uh, I'm talking, of course, of the 2011 Gareth Evans masterpiece, The Raid.
Oh, I don't think I know that movie.
What?
Yeah. Do I? I don't think I do know this movie.
One of the greatest action films ever made, and you don't know it?
Seriously, I don't think I do. No.
Okay, here's what it is.
Is it like okay, wait, just let me ask this just so that I can,
Uh-huh.
because I think I know, but I'm not sure. Is it kind of like um what was the name of that movie where there was like the the city block and the cops were like in charge of a city block? Um like Attack on Precinct 13 or something like that? Was it kind of like that?
Nothing like that.
Okay. All right.
Well, maybe something like that, except in reverse.
Okay.
Here's the way it breaks down. There's this building that's known as like a safe house for the worst of the worst. Murderers, gangsters. Everybody who's anybody that's just bad, right? And nobody uh, dares go into this apartment building because it's just an apartment building because it is so fortified that anybody that goes in is going to die,
Oh.
no matter what branch of the police, military. It's a literal death trap for law enforcement. Except there are these officers that decide to, you know what, we're gonna go after him, and the whole movie from top to bottom. There's no okay, we're going to set up the plan, and this is we're going to preach here, and there's no, hey daddy, you gonna come home from work today? There's nothing except, all right, we're pulling up to the building, and then the action starts, and then the credits roll.
Ooh.
It is top to bottom mind bending action, between gunfights and hand to hand stuff. It is just crazy on every conceivable level as this team of elite officers goes into this apartment building filled from the bottom floor to the penthouse with people that want to kill them. It is an amazing watch and something that, God, and it has a sequel.
Nice.
But God, it is such an amazing movie. If you've seen John Wick, guess what? I'm pretty sure they pulled some stuff from here. If you've seen Dread, it absolutely pulled inspiration from this movie.
Hey, don't be spoiling the rest of my list.
Hey, I don't know your list. I'm just throwing stuff out there. I'm just throwing stuff out there. What can I say? But it is the raid. Um, there is an argument to be made that it could be the greatest action film ever made. Um,
Wow. Okay. I'm definitely putting this on my list.
and when you watch it, I want to hear what your thoughts are.
I definitely will tell you because I mean, all those movies that we are talking about right now are right up my alley. I mean, I first of all, Dread is on my list, so spoilers, it's coming up. But I also love John Wick, both just like as a whole Chronicle series, and and as sort of like that type of action movie is like one of my most favorites. So this sounds perfect for me.
I think it will be. And then you're going to call me and you're going to
Absolutely.
say, "Thank you, Josh.
I,
Thank you."
I promise if I love it, I will tell you.
Excellent. So that's my number 4.
All right. Okay, my number
Kitty
3,
agrees.
again, I'll try to be succinct about this one because I also feel like this is an old one that everybody has heard of, and I don't know what I can sort of add to this except if you are young and you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's definitely like in that genre of everybody should watch this movie. Especially if you love movies, like just the storytelling in this movie itself is worth sort of studying and understanding because it is so well executed. Pardon the pun again, but there you go. This movie stars Al Pacino. It was done in 1973. It's called Serpico. Serpico is I think Serpico is one of those movies that it gets called back a lot in a lot of our current sort of movie storytelling that specifically deals with cops that are dealing with either sort of whistleblower situations or situations where there's corruption and they don't know how to figure out how to get in or get out of it. There's a really interesting moral ethics and dilemmas that are going on in Serpico. And it's one of, I think, it's one of Al Pacino's, first of all, it's one of his most signature movies other than Scarface, which is on a totally different level. In this movie, um, there is something, Al Pacino brings a kind of gravitas to this role, which is, yeah, it's serious. Like you really feel it. And at the end of this movie, yeah, man, again, there's no it's not really like a fabulously, hey, everybody has a happy ending, but it's such a great sort of feel for the end of the movie. Like, maybe things didn't work out the way you exactly thought they were going to, but you get this feeling of like satisfaction at the end of this movie, which is also really good. Um, I I I don't know what really to say about Serpico that I feel like you can't sort of get from a lot of places. I mean, everybody's done a review of Serpico, but I will say that one of the things that I think sort of makes this work in a way that is different from other movies is there is this idea about Frank Serpico that e- as a character you feel both the gravity of the situation that he's in and you feel it from the regional standpoint. It's New York City. There are so many iconic things that are happening in the 70s in Greenwich Village, which is where Serpico's apartment is. Um, there are things that happen in Brooklyn which will just sort of like be an old school shout out to the way that New York City used to be and the way that it was run and operated. And it's where we get a lot of ideas about how we think New York City is today. It's super interesting. So I highly suggest this. Serpico, it came up for a couple of Academy Awards, but it didn't win any, unfortunately. It won like a Golden Globe or something. But it's really excellent, and this also is adapted from a book, so it also is really good. So I highly suggest Serpico. That is my number 3 choice. I'm assuming you've seen Serpico.
No.
Oh, well,
I've seen the
that's
episode of It's Always Sunny where they're like, "You want to do Serpico? We'll do Serpico. I want to be Serpico."
there's a restaurant actually right by my house that's called Serpico's, and honestly, I cannot divorce myself from Serpico's the movie, from Serpico's the pizza place. It just it feels like every time I order from Serpico's, like I should, you know, run some kind of covert operation or something.
Serpico.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way.
Well,
But
no,
great,
I can't say that I've seen it.
it's a great movie. Definitely worth watching.
Well, if it's worth if it's worth copying, then it's worth seeing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, that's the sincerest form of flattery.
Yes, stealing.
Stealing, sure. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, that's good.
Um,
Absolutely.
you know what? I got to get to my number 3.
All right, number 3.
Updating the letterbox to one pod.
I'm going to do something different for my number 2 and my number 1. I'm actually going to introduce them together because I've got a really similar thread going, and I think it's worth putting them together. So I'm going to put them together. So when you're
No,
done
my
with
number
number
2 and
3,
my number 1 are like very, very different.
well, you can take all the time you need for that. I'm going to put my 2 together.
Okay. And I'll also be brief with mine because one we've talked about quite a few times. The other I don't think we've really had a chance to talk about yet. But like you've mentioned before with some of your movies, it's probably one of the most viewed movies of its type. So it really doesn't bear, repeating. But we're going to talk about my number 3, Meow. It quickly became one of my favorite cop movies, as you can tell by its number 3 spot. Because every time I watch it, it never stops being funny. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with, you know, comedy troops, because they're a very it's something that you really have to have a taste for. Now, don't I don't know where I would put these guys, as far as the greats in having this group name that sort of headlines your film title, because there have been many sort of anthological, that's not a word, that series that do this sort of thing now. Um, for those of you wondering what I'm talking about, Meow, I would hope that by Meow you understand I'm talking about Broken Lizards, Super Troopers.
Super Troopers.
Yes, it's definitely a comedy of 5 bored and always ineffective Vermont state troopers that have their jobs sort of on the cutting block, as it seems the governor has decided that there are other ways to fight crime without them. So they have to kind of prove their worth or lose their jobs. And as it happens, there's a big conspiracy going on that they've kind of stumbled across and, get to uncover. I don't think it's any spoilers to say that the good guys win. And after all, it's a comedy of arresting proportions. And one of the things that really makes me appreciate the writing in a comedy is me quoting it 20 years later and and saying things like the snozberries taste like snozberries. It's not from the movie, but it's a reference from that movie to another movie. I get it. I'm hip. I'm in the know. But Super Troopers, um, it really uh, shone a spotlight on the Broken Lizard crew and Jay Chandrasekhar. God, I hate saying his name because I never do it right. Do you have any names like that you're like,
Yeah, plenty.
I love this guy, but I'm never gonna be able to say his name correctly?
Plenty. It's kind of like trying to hear me say, see, now I can't even say it. Bath and Beyond. Bed, Bath, Beyond. No, Bath and Body. Bath, Body, and Beyond? Bath and Body Works. Bath and Body Works.
Yeah,
Body
that's
Works.
different
Yeah.
than Bed Bath and Beyond.
Bath,
I was
Body
I
Works,
was
and Beyond.
singing Jimmy Eat World's The Middle,
I
and
know that
I
song.
realized that I cannot say little girl. And that's a predominant phrase in the middle.
Huh? Huh?
But every time I try to say little girl, it comes out little girl. It just
Okay, that's
takes
actually
some
fun.
time, little girl.
Huh?
For some reason, it just does not exit my mouth properly. I digress. Jay is the sort of the director of the group. He did the directing for Beer Fest and Super Troopers 2 and Club Dread. He's the guy that kind of, he's the centerpiece. He's the guy that brings it all together, and he's sort of the rug that brings the room together. And in fact, they thought he did such a fine job. At least this is how I believe the story goes. That they were like, "Hey, we're going to do the Dukes of Hazzard, and you want to direct that?" And he's like, yes, I do. So,
Huh?
what do we get? The Dukes of Hazzard. We get a pretty funny Super Troopers reference, as a couple of the guys from Super Troopers show up as campus security, as the Duke boys are doing their college thing, not in college, but visiting. Anyway,
Totally
Super
get it.
Troopers, super hilarious. And quite frankly, I would absolutely love a liter of cola right now. Can anybody get me a liter of cola? Like I said, this movie came out 22 years ago, and I'm still quoting it. That's how you know it's beautiful. Super Troopers, number 3.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna I'm gonna group these two movies together, not because they are the same movie or because they kind of like have the same exact theme, but they both deal with the same exact authoritarianism, which I feel like from a cop procedural is one of those ideas that has been around a lot. They're both sci-fi and they both sort of fit so well together, even though they they sort of go in a slightly different direction. And I'm going to talk about my number two first because that's Judge Dredd, which I alluded to before. Judge Dredd is okay. So first, I had seen Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone, and I gotta say, although I thought it was campy and kind of cool, and I wasn't that taken with it. And I know I am in the 1% minority here, but then I saw Carl Urban play Judge Dredd, and I was immediately sucked in to, yeah, this is exactly what it should have been.
Can I
Uh,
get a point of order?
sure.
Are is your number 2 Judge Dredd or is it Dread?
My number two is Dredd because Judge Dredd is the 1995 film, and Dredd is the 2012 film, I think.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it. So that's the one.
Yeah,
Uh,
Judge Dredd is Mister, I am the law, and
Yes.
Dread is pew, 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 pew.
Yeah. Dread is Carl Urban, I think, kind of like at his at his anti point of being Billy Butcher in The Boys, right? I mean, like it's such a crazy 180 pivot that almost gives you a headache. Um
Mhm.
in Dread, there is a, I think personally that the reason that I like Dread better is because the story is tighter. It's a little bit less over the top, kind of campy, the way that Sylvester Stallone always makes all his films. And I really like the idea that Carl Urban's character is not actually the only important character. There is really a lot of well thought out. Even the bad guys are well executed. Pardon the pun. Um, and I also really like the visual effects in Dread. So just super good. Okay, so I'm going to tell you why I love Dread first, and then I'll move on to my number one movie. I love Dread because I didn't realize until 2012, and I was like super into this movie. Didn't realize that there was this whole universe of Dread. There are all these stories that came from comics that deal with this dystopic landscape on I forgot what it's called. It's something Earth. It's like ruined Earth. It's like it's bad Earth. Um, and there are all these levels of dread that we just never hear about. There are the comics make it very clear that there is this huge story behind the lawgivers, and who the judges are, and what sort of is happening in this crazy place called City One. It's an cursed Earth is what it's called. It's an enormous sort of thing that is happening. But there are also off-world things that are happening. And we hear all this stuff about isocubes, but we don't really understand in especially Dread, although in Judge Dredd we sort of get a little bit of an idea. But in Dread, we get a better idea of what the isocubes actually could be, and it's all just alluded to. There's no actual, like, we don't see anything. There's nothing put in visual narrative. It's just all storytelling, and it is just so effective. I just absolutely love it. And so the comic goes into great detail about what these things are, where they are, why it's so absolutely terrifying to be there, and why everybody wants to avoid it. There's also a huge lore, like an entire mythology around the judge system, and the idea that there is basically zero civic participation by the population, except for some very low, level participation that that is like on that is almost on a bureaucracy kind of scale, and the only people that really have civic participation in the populace are the judges. And it brings into highlight, into this stark contrast, the reason that this authoritarianism system is both so subject to corruption, but also can be sort of like, spot executioners are, this is a thing, this is what the population lives with. And it's just crazy. There's so many awesome dystopian ideas in here that are so worthy of being explored. So the movie itself did such a good job for me of sort of balancing out what I think the Dread universe should be. There is the judges, but then there's also the psychics, and there's like this big operational system within that is subject to corruption. But it's also subject to this idea of sort of overly paladin kind of thinking, which can also be just as deadly. And it brings up great moral and ethic ideas. I just loved it. Okay, so along the same lines, I also picked as my number one RoboCop. Now, the reason that I picked RoboCop as my number one cop show is because I felt like when I saw RoboCop that this was one of the best ideas about the both integration of cybernetic sort of function, AI function, and what it means to still be human, and how the balance of both of those things is precarious, and what big corporations will do. I mean, it is the story of colonialism inside of an established city, and it sort of kind of dovetails almost hand in hand or dovetails, I shouldn't say hand in hand, it dovetails with Judge Dredd in such a beautiful way because there is the overarching idea that authoritarianism is the only way for population control, but at the same time, there's also this sort of weird fascination with we make drug dealers out to be the worst of the worst of the worst, and we stopped sort of thinking about people as individuals. We stopped thinking about people as humans. We stopped creating narratives where drug dealers were also human beings, and we just simply gave them the title of bad guy, and we assigned every bad moral fiber that we possibly could to who those bad guys were. And RoboCop and Dredd both do the same exact thing. And it brings up really good points, which are, do these types of crimes deserve death? Is there a point at which there is like so much that you've done in damage to a society that that's the only choice that there is? Where are our lines, and how do we create them if we're going to use these high technology sort of replacements for who our current police force is? And we sort of see some of this even happening now, right? We see, this idea of doing drone surveillance. We see this idea of, creating a surveillance state where we may or may not be doing things that are bad, good, in between. And we don't have that middle issue, which is human understanding at the heart of it, to be able to figure out what's going on. And I think in Dread, the biggest one that I can come up with is at the end, when they let the tech guy go. It's because, she sees that he's been a pawn in all of this, and Dredd is like, no, he gets executed. And the whole idea behind that is just such good, rich science fiction material. RoboCop does something very similar where, Murphy basically has kind of a breakdown because his programming conflicts with his humanity. And how do we manage that? What do we do in order to create a more perfect world, but with, human empathy, human understanding? Will that be possible? And so those two movies go together for me. Number 2, Dread. Number 1, RoboCop. Love them both. They both have just such a awesome sort of feel for dystopic police in the future, or maybe not even in the future.
Okay. Neither one of those are on my list. And quite frankly, I'm sort of kicking myself.
Wow, we didn't have any crossovers on this list.
No crossover.
Crazy.
Our minds just went to completely different places.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I love the ones like every movie you've mentioned that I've seen, Men in Black, Training Day, Fargo, Seven, Dread. I love all of those movies, but for some reason, when it came to best cop movie, my mind, like, why did my mind immediately go to RoboCop? It's such an amazing movie.
It is, right?
I'm kicking myself a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think my list is absolutely a perfect reflection of me, and what more could I possibly ask? You're going to see a lot of comedy on my list because that's sort of what I do. It's my thing, and
Right.
you can always trust Jin to bring the the cinematic quality to a higher level compared to mine.
Oh, that's the
That's why
nicest thing someone said to me today. Thank you.
you're welcome. I guess it's time though to get to my number 2 and my number 1.
Number 2 and number 1, have at it.
Okay. So my number 2 is once again a movie that is super quotable. It is one of those movies that if you're into, the I guess the idea that if you're a man, you watch this movie kind of deal, um, then sure, I guess. But I think it's a movie that Ooh, everybody loves. I've never seen anybody say they don't like it. Um,
Is it Walking Tall?
with Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
I mean, that's not the one that I would have picked. I would have picked the other one because I like that one better. But
I, I'm, I did something wrong here. I think that is supposed to be here. Sorry, little producer stuff going on. I updating the ticker. By the way, if you like the ticker,
it's nice. That was a
sound off.
good choice. Very good choice.
And it's a pretty cool way for those of you kind of maybe jump in late and you're like, huh, where are they at? Well, now you know. Right now we're at my number two. So where was I? Super popular movie. Da 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 da. Very quotable. Great performances. Iconic is a
Mm.
word that's used a lot, and it's a western.
Ooh.
I'm talking about 1993's Tombstone.
Oh, nice.
I know it's not exactly the movie people think of when they're like cops, right? Well, that's the
I mean,
movie I
he's
thought.
the sheriff.
Yep.
He
He's
is
the
the
guy that's
sheriff.
responsible for law and order, going after the cowboys. I'll be your Huckleberry, and my Hippocratic oath only goes so far. All the great quotes are from Val Kilmer, by the way. Um,
Uh,
it's Doc Holliday, and that's really where when you're watching Tombstone, two people are going to immediately spring to mind, and neither one of them portray Wyatt Earp. Although Kurt Russell does a fine job. Um, it's Val Kilmer and Sam Elliott. They're the ones that you walk away going, yeah, those guys.
right.
Val
Right.
Kilmer especially. Nobody plays cool like Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday. And no, I'm gonna say it, coolest guy in a movie ever.
It's true.
Even dying, he's just cooler than the other side of the pillow. It's infuriating how suave this man is with freaking tuberculosis. It's not fair, but Tombstone is iconic for westerns, and it is iconic for uh, its style, its story, everything about it. Johnny Ringo, it is a
Shh.
masterpiece in cinematic storytelling, and my favorite western ever. And it's all about them law dogs. Although they get it's also carries sort of a trope that I'm find myself to be a fan of, and that's of course the sort of the reluctant, not necessarily the reluctant hero, but like the reluctant officer, like much like John McClane, Wyatt Earp. It's not like he rolled into town going, I guess I'm going to be the law around here. No, it's just he saw what was going on, saw that it was bad for business to, let these cowboys run wild. So he also saw that the actual sheriff was ineffective to say the least. So he kind of stepped up, not for morality reasons, but for those good old fashioned Western uh, ideals of profit and revenge. So that is the story of Tombstone. That is why it is my number two. Everybody's seen Tombstone. I assume you've seen Tombstone. Right?
Oh, many times. I actually really love that movie. It's like one of my. I think that's one of my favorite uh, renditions of the Wyatt Earp story, and partly because they do it so well in the Western motif. Like it's not just that the styling feels Western; it's that they get all the storytelling right with that, weird, quirky timing and the quick edits and it's actually really good. It's very well done. The only Western that I think I like even more than that is The Quick and the Dead. So that should tell you something. Good
Yeah,
movie.
it does tell me that you almost have great taste. Anyway,
Almost. Also,
um,
when Val Kilmer, let's remember when Val Kilmer was hot. Yeah, yeah, he was hot. Had to throw that in there.
Val Kilmer was something else in Tombstone.
He
Again,
was
even with tuberculosis,
he
playing
was
a character with
amazing.
tuberculosis is just like, I want to be him.
Uh huh. Yep. Completely agree.
Okay, my number one. We're here. We're at my number one, and again, I kind of you hear the cat in the background. I don't know if you can hear the cat in the background because
He's
apparently
just excited. He's giving us fanfare.
my number one. The cat's driving away, viewers. Um, my number one, number one. I came at this from a sideways position as I tend to do, and I have a tendency to come up with um, these these pieces of my list that normal people, normies as I call them, uh, don't quite think about. But for some reason, they immediately pop into mind for me. So my number one, which we've talked about on this show many times, is R R R,
Wow.
because I love the movie. Absolutely love
I,
the movie. It has
I couldn't tell.
everything: over the top, crazy action, a heartwarming story about this awesome romance, and heartbreak. And it's an it's just this amazingly epic story from
I'm gonna
top to
totally take
bottom.
credit for this. I'm gonna totally take credit for this. I'm gonna say that Josh's love of RRR came from my suggestion. So I'm channeling my inner Tahani right now from the Good Place by saying, yes, Josh, that is an amazing choice. I'm so glad that I introduced you to it. Sorry.
All credit in the
You're
world, Jen. It changed my life.
It's true though. RRR is one of those shows that like if you it's hard to express to somebody who hasn't seen it why it is so good. But the moment that you see it and you drink it all in, you're like, "Oh my god. This is just everything." And yeah, it just fills a void in your heart that you didn't know you had.
It has every type of battle you can imagine. There's crazy hand to hand fights, crazy gun fights. There's bow and arrow fights. There's
There's a
even a
fight with a
dance
tiger.
battle.
There's a fight with a tiger.
Fight with a tiger.
I mean, there's
It's a,
something for everybody.
everything, and that dance battle is just. I mean, there's a reason why the music won this thing an Oscar.
Right?
Although to not even be nominated for best foreign film is just like, what are you thinking, people? What are
I
you
know
thinking?
it's such a weird slap in the face.
Like, but we like this song. It's like, yeah, yeah, of course you did.
A- And and to be honest, the song is also really good. So, you know, credit where credit is due. It's amazing.
It is. It is. I wish we had time for me to just play that whole, but we don't, unfortunately. So RRR is my number one. So yeah, that's our lists. Our list for
That was
this week.
exciting.
It
That,
was.
that
It's
was
been a
really
while.
exciting.
I
And
forgot how adrenaline pumping it is to
I,
get to the bottom of your list.
that was exciting. And honestly, I didn't see your number one coming. And I gotta say, it's really satisfying, because I completely agree that that is like it honestly just sort of like fits everything about being a good it has a little bit of something for everybody, but the police part of it, the cop part of it, is so understated that you almost might miss it if you weren't really paying attention. And I think that that's actually what makes it so good.
Because when it comes out to
Yep.
kind of take the forefront, it really like gets in there with its, oh, he's a cop. That's right.
Right,
And
right.
he's a good cop. I mean,
Everything
like, he's really
pivots.
good at his job.
Yep, and everything pivots around that, which which, when you're watching the rest of the movie, you almost get, like, so sucked into the rest of the story that you forget that that's a huge part of it, and yeah,
Hmm.
it's just yeah, you're totally right, it's so excellent. So
And
that was
then
great.
it, we had some good lists tonight, I think.
I think so too. So
Should we recap those?
I will peruse my list for you, one last time. And I hope that our homework for this coming week is going to be something super exciting because I feel like I'm out of practice and really need something good. Okay, so my number 10 is Men in Black. Number 9, Training Day. Number 8, 48 Hours. Number 7, LA Confidential. Number 6, Fargo. Number 5, 7. Number 4, In the Heat of the Night. Number 3, Serpico. Number 2, Dread. And number 1, RoboCop.
Wonderful list. Amazing
Did we get
list.
them all? All
Yes.
right. Nice.
Probably want to hear what mine is. From top to bottom, or is it bottom to top?
I do.
From 10 to
Bottom to
1.
top.
Number 10,
That's the
Black
ticket.
Klansman. Yeah, I've got to plug the title in the show. Number 9, Police Academy. Number 8, Die Hard. Number 7, 21 Jump Street. Number 6, Hot Fuzz. Number 5, The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad. Number 4, The Raid. Number 3, Super Troopers. Number 2, Tombstone. And number 1, R. You
Yay!
ready for your homework?
I am. Lay it on me. What do we got?
Because it's going to be a quirky one.
Ooh, those are the best.
Yes. It's gonna you're really gonna have to put your thinking cap on this one.
Ooh.
Yeah, because it's all about the blink and you'll miss it stuff.
Okay. Care to elaborate?
I suppose I should. You see, every once in a while, a movie gets made, right? You've heard of these things. They're called films. And in these films, there might be a scene that requires, I don't know, like a group of people to play a band. Now, we've already done our lists of our top 10 favorite fictional bands in film, so it's not that. But every once in a
Okay.
while, these directors and producers reach out to actual bands to make these cameos. Uh,
Oh.
so, our next list is going to be our top 10 favorite real life band cameos.
So would a rock opera count, or do you want it to be a little bit more incidental to the movie itself?
It this doesn't count uh, at for what I'm looking for exactly. So I feel like this is a good jumping off point. In what was it? Euro Trip. Remember that movie? I think it was Euro Trip.
Hmm.
Is that with Scotty Doesn't Know?
I think so. Yeah.
So imagine if the band that did Scotty Doesn't Know was like not led by Matt Damon and was an actual like full band. Um, maybe the band in question is playing the prom. Maybe the band in question is just they just cut to a scene of a band that's doing something, and it's a band you recognize because they're a real band. We're looking for these real life bands that make cameo appearances, not uh, necessarily important to the story. Just hey, they're a band that I know in real
Okay.
life.
So I'm going to give you an example, and I won't use this from one of my movies because because I'm using it as an example. But so that what you might be thinking of is something like in Terminator 2, when Axl Rose and Guns N' Roses come out, and Terminator immediately identifies them, and in the background is Welcome to the Jungle, like that.
As long as the band appears, it's okay. I mean, so like Meatloaf wouldn't count because he's like the actor in the movie, but you know,
Right.
um,
So School of Rock wouldn't count because yeah, Jack Black is Jack Black, but yeah, Jack Black is Jack Black.
I would like to give you a better example, but okay, I'm going to give you a freebie
Okay.
that may or may not make my list. Do you remember the Flintstones movie
Yes, with the B-52s.
with the BC-52s?
With the BC-52s. Right, right. Okay.
So you get what I'm saying now?
I do. I think that's actually what I was thinking in the beginning. I just wanted to make sure that uh I wasn't overthinking it. But I think yes, that's exactly what we got.
So we're
And so
going to count down
my
our.
example of Terminator 2 would actually be correct because
Mhm.
yeah, because they were actually playing. And yeah, okay, cool.
I said they don't necessarily have to be performing, but as long as it's like, hey, we got the band to do the cameo.
I think I got some ideas. This is gonna be a little bit. It's gonna be a little bit tricky, but I think I got some ideas.
I'm trying to reactivate our brains for our list making.
Yeah, this will be interesting. Like I can think of a couple of people that I think would. Yeah, I can think of a couple that I've got like right off the top of my head. So I think I've got a pretty good, like a good tranche already, and I'll be able to work from that. So that's good.
And once again, I did not do any kind of preparation for my list um, prior to saying what it's going to be because that would just be too smart. So I will also be putting my list together over the week, even though logic should dictate, hey, I should have an idea of what I want on the list before I say that it's the list.
We'll see which one of us has a harder time with this.
I get like 4 or 5 off the top of my head, so I think I'm good.
All right.
And then I'd stop at 8
there we go.
because like I
We'll see
couldn't
what
think of
happens.
2 more.
We'll see what happens.
Yes, we will. And here we are. Yeah, not even approaching the 3-hour mark. We did good tonight.
We did really good. Josh has to get up super early in the morning, so gotta keep our podcast times tight here, which is all good.
All good. Well, Jen,
Yeah.
even though it's very late for me, sometimes I do feel a bit peckish. And of course, my diet that I'm on insists I only eat foods that are based or inspired by film and television. Where can I find some recipes that will
Well,
help me with this diet?
I actually have this website called moviesandmeals.com, which I just sort of brushed and updated and whatever. Uh, and you can find all kinds of recipes over there that are movie and TV show inspired. Um, w- I don't know if you're watching the TV series called Wheel of Time, but we have a whole bunch of Wheel of Time stuff that we're going to try to do, and because Halloween is coming up, we have our awesome 31 Days of Halloween, which we always do every single year. And this year, we're going to try to do what we do in the shadows, because there is so much goodness to what we do in the shadows. So we're going to try to do a whole bunch of food inspired by what we do in the shadows. So join us over at moviesandmeals.com. And yeah, you can contact me there anytime.
Awesome.
How about you? How can we find you and all your other amazing web products?
Well, what did I say? Like, well, you can always go to wadcomedia.com. That's the one-stop shop for all your Wadco Media needs. That's the company that produces things like 1021 and the Wadcast every Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Want to give a real quick shout out to Mr. Matt McCarthy for gracing our show last week, episode number 145, for his second appearance on the Wadcast. We had a lot of fun talking about really, in some cases, unfortunate movies. It was a good time had by all. So if you want to check that out, episode number 145, Matt McCarthy 2. Make sure you do that wherever fine podcasts are sold. And join us tomorrow night live for the Wadcast, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, on the usual channels where you can find at wadcomedia.com. And by the way, there's a Patreon there. Ignore it. And there's also a merchandise section. So if you really, really, really want to throw down some ducats to support the cause, it's not like we really make any money off the merchandise. It's just I think it's much cooler to have something you can hold in your hand and wear or drink out of, or whatever the case may be. Get some nice 10-1 merch and show that you care by showing everybody that you listen to the show. And that's really where it's at, rather than throwing money at something that you know I don't even know what the Patreon tiers are anymore. It's just yeah, forget about that. Don't worry about that. Yeah, just go on over to the merch shop if you're feeling supportive. And that's wadcomedia.com. And we're always trying to kind of push the boundaries of what I'm physically capable of producing in a single week. So expect more content in the future. In the meantime, you've been listening to 1021. That's a countdown show, movie centric. It's the number one movie centric list making podcast on the internet. And that's absolutely true if you don't look it up. So be sure to join us here every week. Maybe, I'm sorry. Be sure to keep an eye on the Facebook page to stay updated on when we go live every time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 Pacific ish. And if you have any ideas, if you have any thoughts, if you have any lists that you'd like to either, add on to, or maybe even, give us ideas for lists, we're always willing to accept your thoughts and just throw them down there in the comments down below wherever you're listening to, unless you're downloading this, which, by the way, you can do. And you feel like listening to us on the road and you can't watch the video of our static pictures, you can listen to it on all of your favorite podcatchers. Usually those episodes drop on Sunday. There's a lot to talk about after the show. After we finish the lists, there's so many things to plug. My goodness. I wish there was an easier way to do this all. Oh, wait. Go to wadcomedia.com. That's where everything is kind of sitting there waiting for you to discover, like the Facebook pages and da 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 da. Rate, review, subscribe, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that panic button, because it's time to get on out of here. With all that being said, I guess we've come down to the one thing that I absolutely remembered how to do without hesitation, without fail, and that is this. Say goodnight, Jen.
Good